Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists and people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in life and the business. You already know who I am. It's Marcos Luis, and I want to thank everybody for joining me for all these episodes and sharing the episodes. Please make sure you subscribe, share these episodes, and like them. Leave some comments down at the bottom, and feel free to leave a review because it helps us in locating the podcast. If you're listening to the audio podcast, make sure you tip on over to YouTube because the podcast is there. We do it live chat every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I also want to thank all the people who are listening to the podcast internationally. Shout out to Brazil, shout out to the UK, and thank you for the comments and the love that you send me all the time. So we appreciate it. So today, I'm excited beyond belief. My guest today is Dr.Taavon Bazemore. He is a licensed clinical social worker. He is a fellow podcaster. His podcast is called Yes, I'm Going to Talk My Shift. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. So please welcome him to the show. Welcome, Doctor.
How are you? Thank you. Hello, everybody. And thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know we had a hard time coordinating the schedule, but hopefully we can get
we worked it out.
Yeah, we did. Let's get some information out there for people. Listen, I have questions. The first question is, who is Dr. Taavon Bazemore?
You know, when I think about who am I always think about the things that complete me. And the things that complete me are family, love, and resilience. And so that's what I would say. That's who I am. I am a man that has been shaped by my family, filled with love, and built for resilience. I am from the inner city of Baltimore, West Baltimore, Maryland. You know that it's a thing in Baltimore. I'm from West Baltimore. Born and raised in West Baltimore. I am the oldest of 4 siblings. Well, 5 siblings. My dad is still having babies. My mom had 3, my dad had 3, and I'm the oldest of those sibling groups. I am, I guess, a provider, protector. I have provided and protected my siblings for the entirety of my life. When you are the oldest sibling and your family or your parents battle things like addiction, you oftentimes have to wear multiple hats. And so I have been that in the lives of my siblings, their oldest brother, but I've also had to play that role sometimes as dad and step in and be dad. And so in all honor and love, I have to say, you know, rest in peace and love to my baby brother, Daron Shakur Harry. I always say his name. He's 27 years old, and he lost his life to COVID. Oh, wow. So I always have to say my brother's name. In 2021, I buried my brother, and then turned around in 2022, I buried my mom. So I say that I'm a man that is, you know, molded by my family, filled with love, and built for resilience.
Wow, that's a mouthful. First of all, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Second of all, I want to talk about that in a minute because that's an important part of who you are. But a little more specifically, how did you grow up? You said you were the oldest of now 5 or 6 kids. How was that for you? How was growing up? What was child life like?
We lived in the inner city of West Baltimore, which you call Park Heights. If you ever hear about Baltimore, you will hear about Park Heights. Park Heights is one of the most well-known places in Baltimore. It is plagued by violence and crime and drug addiction, like any inner city hood. So me and my sister, we basically stayed together. My sister, her name is Letitia. We're 4 years apart. We are the closest of the siblings. We stayed together. My mother, when she had my baby brother, she decided to make a hard decision, and she let him live with his father at a very young age. So he was raised by his dad. I have 2 other siblings on my dad's side who were raised by their mothers. One of my sisters, she's like 27. She was raised by her mom. And then I have another sister who is 8 years old. Yes, I am 36, about to be 36 in June with an 8-year-old sibling. she is being raised by another family member as well. Um, so how did we grow up? We grew up in the inner city. We grew up in the hood. We grew up in a household that was plagued by substance abuse, domestic violence. We struggled. We were not the kids that had the finer things in life. Sometimes we didn't have the basic necessities. Sometimes we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. We didn't know we were going to be sleeping. We faced eviction. We had utilities cut off. We struggled. Like we were the idea of, or what you think of, young people in urban communities and how they had to face life. That was our lifestyle. Um, I started working at 14 and 9 months because in Baltimore you can work that early for summer, a summer job. And that money that I made was accounted for. It was needed to help feed me and my siblings. It was help it used to contribute to them going back to school. Um, we talking about getting paid at this time. Back in the day, it was like I think 6.25 an hour was minimum wage. So I wasn't bringing home a major check. We talking about $300, $400 every was it couple of weeks because they pay you different when you're working for a summer job.
Right.
But that money was accounted for. I remember buying my younger brother some uniforms, buying my sister uniforms, feeding us, and turning that check over, to the adults. Um, but the one person name that I had to say is Donna Jean Cole. That's my mom. Um, my mom struggled to raise three kids. My brother, he stayed with his father, but my mother struggled to raise three kids on her own, with three able-bodied men who were living not far from her and her kids. Um, she kept a job. My mother worked through her addiction. My mother, she battled addiction. She got clean on and off for years. Um, and I remember that one time she got clean, she wanted me to come to her anniversary because they celebrate when they got clean.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother had relapsed so much. I told her, I'm not coming no more. Until you get 10 years clean, I'm not supporting it because it doesn't sound like you're serious. Now imagine me, I'm a teenager telling my
Wow.
mom
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until you get 10 years clean, I'm not coming. Um, and
That's what I was going to
every
ask you. How did it impact you at the time? Because even as a child, when we're aware of, this story is I don't want to say typical, but it happens quite frequently in African American and Black
Mhm.
communities and people of color, where we struggle through, economic. Okay, here we go. Let's just roll it on back.
It's gonna happen.
Systemic depression and oppression and
Mhm.
all these things, where financially, we're in a place where we can't, take care of ourselves, and drugs are the alternative to as an escape and get away. And our parents are fighting the, domestic abuse, alcoholic abuse, drug abuse, all these
Mhm.
things in order to live and survive. How did you, as a child, recognize what was going on and then get to a place where you can proceed forward and then choose a life of what you're doing now to help others?
When I was younger, I say that I had a lot of animosity towards my mom, um, because I felt like you had kids make a better decision. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I realized that my mom had me when she was 21.
Mm,
She had my sister when she was 25
right.
and my brother when she was 28. She was in a domestic violence relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Both of her parents had been deceased before my mother was even 12 years old. Her older brother left the service to raise she and her six siblings. Once I put that into, once I became aware of the beauty in a 21-year-old raising a child on her own, and then a 25-year-old raising two children on her own, and then a 28-year-old raising three kids on her own, battling addiction, working every day, being in a domestic violence relationship, my mother in my 20s became the most beautiful, most awesome person to me because I didn't appreciate her struggle.
I love
I
that.
just
I love that. Uh,
accused her. I
yeah.
just was upset with her. Like, why didn't you do more? But when I was able to humanize my mom, because we see our parents as these heroes, these
Right.
superheroes, these people that are just like unbelievably, undeniably supposed to be like the epitome of everything, right? But when I was able to grace her and see her as a human being who was overcoming obstacles, I was finally able to appreciate the person she was in her struggle and why her addiction became so important to her.
I love that.
Um,
Yep. And I want to interject, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's part of the pressure that drives them to do these things too,
mhm,
because they are being upheld as heroes, and they themselves are children. They're 21. We at 21, I think back to when I was 21. What was I doing at 21? I was out
right.
having a good time. I didn't have any kids, and that's a lot of pressure at 21 to have kids, have two, three kids,
Yeah.
and you're
That's what
still a
I thought
child
about.
yourself. Yeah.
That's what I thought about through my 20s. I was in undergrad and graduate school. I got to travel. I got to have fun. I didn't. My daughter did not become a part of my life until I was 29.
Right.
But it still was a choice, a decision that I made. It wasn't just like I'm out here, having fun and babies are coming out.
Yeah.
I became a foster dad and I'm trying to adopt her. Um, but I remember what I was doing in my 20s, and I would not have wanted a child. I would want to party and enjoy myself. So my mom didn't get the chance to do that. She was raising kids and battling addiction. Um, and when my mom got her diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, we started to have some conversations around real life and what that was going to look like for. She called me her older guy. What that was going to look like for our older guy. I'm going to put a precursor in, and I'm going to say, whenever I talk to my mom, I might get emotional, a tear might come out. I am
Hmm.
not going to turn the camera off. It is real. It is what it is. It's
Right.
just, it's not. It's the fact that she was just a beautiful woman, and I just love her. Um, and I remember having to switch that role, being her caregiver up until the end. It's just so beautiful to see your parent realize that they did great and that they can trust their life with you and be
Mm,
okay with it
mm,
and trust their transition. She trusted the end of her life with me. She
right.
trusted her transition with me, and she trusted her celebration of life with me. Like she just, this is what I need to happen. She talked to me. This is what I need you to do, and this is what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And it was an amazing responsibility. It was.
I want to talk about that too, because that's an important thing. It's, first of all, it's a cycle of life. This, in this particular instance, it's, something that happened, pancreatic cancer. Maybe it's not age appropriate, age time wise,
Hmm.
you expect that to happen later on in life, but it's
Hmm.
definitely a cycle of life where we take care of our parents if
Hmm.
necessary. I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it, like you said, in terms of who you are, but also how we as people, how everybody else can get to a point where we're okay with doing that, and where we have one forgiveness, have we and figure out a way to do that for our parents and loved ones, not just our parents, but our loved ones.
So again, you have to humanize your parent. That was the biggest thing that I had to learn. I had to set aside a lot of my animosity. I had to deal with it because it was real. There were decisions that she made that impacted her kids, and but there came a point where we just had to have conversations about those decisions. Um, my mother, when she had 19 years clean. She had been clean for 19 years, so that means that
Beautiful.
she stopped using when I was 16 years old. She took me serious when I said I was done.
Beautiful.
Um, that's the beauty of who my mom is. When you think about the significant things she's done in life, her children have always been connected to that. And so it's a pride when you think about 19 years clean and that
Absolutely.
she stopped using when I was 16, when I told her that I was not coming to another celebration unless she got 10 years clean. And I remember her telling her story on her 10th year about how her son, and I was told she told this every year, that her son told her that he was not showing up to her celebration until she got to 10 years. And on her 10th year, she's telling this story and she like, y'all look, and I'm standing in the back. And
Okay,
everybody
here we
turns
go.
around there like, oh my God, he's in the back, he's in the back, he's in the back. Um,
Talk about cry. You'll make me cry,
the fact
because
that that
think
was
about
important to her,
how powerful that is. That's powerful, you
it was
know,
powerful. It was powerful.
because a lot of people don't, you don't go through a drug rehab or you stop using drugs unless you hit rock bottom, unless it means something to you. So the fact that her child was the important thing in her life that told her if you don't stop, I can't continue
Yeah.
on with you.
And her last,
That was the
and her,
catalyst.
and her last bit with drugs, her significant reasons were her three kids. She talk about, she talks about how the last straw, we all moved out.
Mm,
And we were young. We were young. I was 14, so my sister was um 10, 11 ish. Um, but we moved. I moved my grandmother on my dad's side. My mother talked vividly about her seeing my sister pack her little clothes up in a little grocery bag, a little store bag, and actually leaving out the house. And she seeing my sister leave her. And it was like, okay, no, 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 no. I got to get my life together because my kids aren't playing with me anymore. Um,
as a doctor,
so
talk to us actually about the other side of that too. Like, how is your mother feeling? How do people feel on the other side of that about why they're abusing drugs and using drugs and addicted to drugs? Where does all that come from?
my mom had struggles.
Mm,
She had struggles when she was growing up. And back in her time, in the 60s and 70s, as people were getting older, drugs was becoming a major thing in a lot of inner city neighborhoods. You had the war on drugs and all this stuff happening, but it was flooding our communities like it was nothing. And if you are living in Baltimore or certain areas, then we had the opioid pandemic, the crack pandemic.
New
At the
York, where I
time,
am. Mm-hmm.
was the crack pandemic because it was only impacting people of color. It was only
Absolutely.
impacting black folks. So it was the crack pandemic.
Yep.
When it started to impact people that don't look like us, it became
Exactly.
the opioid pandemic.
Opioid, and that's when the
Okay.
government starts to
That's when the
starts to
government
move
got
in.
involved and
Mm-hmm.
started to move in because it was impacting people who were ODing who didn't look like us.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. It's not
My
a
mother,
crisis until it's a crisis for
until
them.
it was a crisis for them. My
Right.
mother, she was in the midst of it. She was struggling. My mother was 21 when she met a man that I wish she never had met. He produced my sister, but it is what it is. But he was very abusive. And so her way of coping with life and trauma, the way that we in our communities cope because we don't believe in therapy and telling people our business, which is still a very true thing that rings in African American families, the people of color, even till today. We don't believe in people being in our business. We are the experts of our lives, which we are, but we can't figure it all out. We need help from other people. And so she found her disconnection from her pain in substance abuse. That's what it is. It's self medicating. She's self medicated in order to escape her own pain, her own trauma, her own hurts. My mother, once I looked at her at hospice and saw what surrounded her, I realized that my mother gave a lot of people a lot of stuff, but it wasn't materialistic things. It was love, it was acceptance, it was appreciation. She made people feel like they were human. She
Hmm.
made everybody who came in contact with her feel like they had the capacity to be loved. Um, I remember her telling specific chocolate, dark skinned females in my family, specifically, you're beautiful, intentionally doing that so that they can believe that their skin tone and how they look was also beautiful as compared to lighter skinned people. She
Right.
was intentional about that.
And so that was a reflection of what she needed to feel for herself. Is that what it
Yes,
was?
my mother was I think she was maybe 5 feet, chocolate, pretty chocolate skin lady, and she was beautiful. She was beautiful. But when you think about um, Jim Crow and how he told our people in our communities if we pin people against each other for skin color, it
Yes.
will create division and hate, and we will kill ourselves out. People at that time they didn't look at my mom and think that she was beautiful because she was chocolate skin, but she was beautiful. My mother was always beautiful to me. She was always jazzy. She was always fly. I would see her and when it was a thing, her baby fat and her heels and her micro minis. She was hit. She was it. She was in the street with her big hoop earrings on and her
I
gold
love it.
bangle bracelets and everything. My mother used to go out to the club with her homegirls, and I would sit there and be like, knowing that I was gay at the time, but I'm looking at her like I want to be fly like her when I get older.
Right.
She was always the jazzy. She was the youngest of her 8 siblings. She was the jazzy aunt. She had nieces and nephews who were being raised with her. I got some cousins that are like in their mid 40s. My mom was 56 when she actually transitioned last year. Um, but she was just, once you get to know your parent, you realize that it's more to them than meets the eye. You realize that they don't let you see their struggles. Like my
Right.
mother is really the definition of her crown tilted, but it didn't fall. Or if it fell, she always picked that shit right back up and she put it back on her head and she would just go. I mean, my mother was always, it became so amazing to me in the end because when a person is loved, when you see an outpour of love for them when they're in hospice. She had
Mm.
people that wanted to be on a schedule every minute to the hour who was going to be there and take care of her. Every
Wow.
minute to the hour, a
Hmm.
list of people signing up to just be there, hold her hand, talk to her, bathe her, feed her. Like people are fighting to be there to take care of her.
Right.
People are fighting to be able to confess and profess that they loved her too, and that they appreciated who she was in their lives.
And so let me ask you this. Do you think that, excuse me, in the midst of something tragic or a fatality or announcement of a termination of life, do people tend to come to a resolution about, who they are, or they start to work on an inner, their inner being to allow themselves to be more loving, more caring, more, I mean, you know, for the finality of life?
So when you think of social work, because I am a licensed clinician as well, you think of Erickson's psychosocial theories. And so there is a part, it's called generativity and stagnation. When we get to a certain age in our lives. Okay, so as a licensed clinical social worker, we do look at Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. And there is a point it's called generativity and stagnation, where adults come to a point when they look over their lives and they look at their accomplishments in life. They look at
Mm,
their failures in life and they make peace with it. Or if they don't make peace with it, then they have an internal conflict because they don't feel like they've accomplished much in life. Um,
gotcha.
I believe that this is what I'll say. What I saw in my mother was a woman who made peace with life. My mother was a very cutthroat, no black and white, straightforward person. A lot of times, what I love my mom is that while she was educated and she could probably compile a really good response to things, um, you got the Donna Cole, they called a genie bird, that was not watered down, normally filled with profanity. And she just told you like it was. Like
Straight
if you
shooting, straight shooter.
F them people, F that job, don't worry about it. You are the shit, and you
There you
going it.
go.
That's just who she was. She didn't. She gave it to you raw, but it was still filled in love. My mother came to me and she said, "I want to talk to you about something." I said, okay, so I want to give you guys the setup. My mother found that she had pancreatic cancer at the end of May, I think May the 30th of 2022. By August 19th, she was gone.
Wow.
Um, we went to the hospital. They confirmed that it was pancreatic cancer. We went back to an appointment. They told it was the stage 4.
Oh my God.
And they told us that she had about 6 months to a year to live if she did chemo. She did chemo one time and she came back to me and she said, I'm not doing it. I said, well, you do know that if you don't do it, then your prognosis goes from 6 months to a year to 3 to 6 months. She said, I have buried my son. I have raised 2 beautiful children. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. I see all my beautiful nieces, nephews, great nieces and nephews running around enjoying life. And she said, I'm done. I'm done. And for me, it was amazing because I just never thought my mom would get to that point, you know?
Uh, yeah.
But she did.
Yeah.
She said, I'm done. I said, okay. She said, but this is what I want. She said, I want a cookout. I bought a house in 2019, and she said, I want to cook out at your house, and I want to invite people. I said, okay. So my family alone is 60 people to 100 people on her side by ourselves.
Wow.
She has eight
Wow.
siblings. They had 20 children, which are my cousins. Um, we co-world, we say co-world, COLEWORLD, cold world, because they were the coals. Um, my 20 cousins and I had 60 great grandchildren.
Oh my God. That's
Okay,
huge. That's huge.
huge.
That's a lot of
And
love, a lot of
they
things.
raised us all together. Like we are raised
Wow.
close knit, as we ain't need friends. We had each other. She had a cookout, invited her co-workers, doctors, nurses, because she worked in the medical field, invited all her family, invited her NA family, which is Narcotic Anonymous. She was a sponsor. She had about 20 sponsees. So that meant that she was responsible for the recovery of 20 other women. They all came. I mean, my house was turned into, I don't know what the hell my mom was doing. I was like, I thought you said a few people. This thing is turned into a whole entire ordeal.
That was a block party.
Block party. But it came to a point where two significant things happened. One, she got overwhelmed because she felt like it was her actual memorial service because people were looking over her.
Right.
So she needed a break. We took a break. And then the second thing was she got up and she wanted to walk the house and speak to everybody and go outside, which she did. And when she walked out back, the yard was filled with people that were there. And that was the first time that I looked at my mom and I said, it's over. Like we are coming to the end. This is the reality of life. Like we are getting to that point.
How were you feeling?
How am I feeling?
How were you feeling at that moment?
Um, I never thought I would lose my mom this early in adulthood. My mom was 56. My mom had me when she was 21.
Right.
So at the time I was 34 years old, planning my 35th birthday party and my graduation party from my PhD program.
Hmm.
The first day, the party was her first time of chemo, and she couldn't make it. She called me just distraught. I said, "Ma, it's okay, stay home." I did a video dance with her on camera at the party, but it was just an emotional time. And for me, what I felt was, wow, this is adulthood. You know,
Yeah.
we talk about becoming adults, but this is a part of adulthood. This is the part of it. This is the transitioning of a beautiful woman. My mother, I've only had her all my life. You know, I've had her my whole entire life. There was about where I didn't have any siblings and I had her just by myself. Um, and I was a mama's boy. And she used to keep me flying jazzy, and she was into her first child. Um, we went through a lot of life together. We argued a lot. We fussed a lot. Oh my God! When I turned 16 years old, it was just battle of each other in the house. Um, but then we found that love again, where we talk on the phone every day. I am identify as a gay male, and I had an ex, and he used to say, you and your mother talk every day, and every time you get off the phone with your mother, you tell her you love her." Yeah, because we love each other. We talked every single day. She was one of my best friends. She was one of my sister's best friends. She was one of my brother's best friends. Um, but I knew it was real when she came to me and she said, "I'm done."
Yeah.
And my grief today plays the trick of you always get to that bargaining stage in your grief. And it's like, wow, what if I would have pushed her harder? You know, what if I would have made her go through the chemo? I would have got a couple more months with her, but it would have been her in agony.
Yeah.
My mother went out beautifully. She was in a room with me and I think it was eight of my cousins and my sister. My mother was known for this rambunctious laugh. She would laugh so loud. You ever see the video when they say you bring your partner home and your family laugh at them?
Right. Yeah.
My family
It's-
always is triggered by that person laughing in the background because it sounds exactly like my mother.
I
She
love
had
that.
this loud, uncontrollable, rambunctious laugh. My mother got to hospice and we were in hospice. And this day, the doctors had told us that we were coming down to a couple of hours.
Mhm.
Somebody said something in the room, and me and I think, five cousins and my sisters shared the most uncontrollable, hearty, love felt, hilarious laugh. And we were laughing so loud. And in that moment, my mother transitioned. It was like clockwork.
Wow.
We kept checking
Wow.
on her bed. We kept checking on her, making sure she's okay. We kept checking on her, waiting for her, waiting for her, waiting for it. But it wasn't until, in true Donna Jean Cole fashion, when all the attention was off of her and she could just be in the midst of her family laughing. And then all she wanted was for us to be okay. And we were sharing this hearty, hearty, hearty laugh that Donna Jean Cole at about 6:23 p.m. on Friday, August the 19th, 2023, slipped away and right in the midst of her family laughing. Until this day, not one person in that room can figure out what the hell we were laughing at because it wasn't
Yeah.
important. It
Yeah.
wasn't important. She just, as she allowed for a moment that we would not be, it made that moment so less traumatizing because we weren't staring at her. We were all just laughing and talking, and we till this day don't know what the hell we were laughing at. But it was in true my mother's form that we would be laughing, distracted, not worried about her. She worried about everybody else, not worried about her. That she would be like, okay, it's my time to go. And she left.
It was right in alignment of where it's supposed
Right.
to be. Yeah.
Right where it need to be. Right where it
Yeah.
need to be. I remember going to her hospice on that Friday and I said, because I looked at the sky and I said, today is today. Today is the day.
Yeah.
She had gotten to that point where you start, as your body, you start to think about your old people that have gone and you start talking to them.
Right.
That truly happened. She was talking to her mom and her dad, and that was beautiful. She danced with my aunt Eva to forever, such a long time, and that's how long I'll love you. She got out the bed, found the strength to get out the bed to dance this one last dance with her big sister, her oldest sister alive. Um, and she looked at me. This is the day before, and she said, "Come here." I came to the side of her bed, and she said, "I love you with my whole heart." And I said, "I love you too." Now you have to remember that this is the end stage of pancreatic cancer, so her muscles and joints and moving and talking is very, very limited at this point. So she's mustering all her strength to say the last thing she needs to say to people because this is important. And I said, "I love you too, man." She said, "No." She said, "You are the best big brother ever. And I could not have done life without you." She said, "I need you to understand that nobody tops you and what you have done for me and my kids." And she said, "And I love you and I appreciate you." She said, "And I love you from the bottom of my heart and I thank you." And I said, "You're welcome." And she said, "No, look at me." She said, "I mean this." And me and my mother started this thing when she first found out she had cancer. She was very nervous,
Mhm.
so she cut her hair off, and she was self-conscious about it. So what I would do is I would go over to her house, and when I walked in, I would kiss on her forehead, and I kiss on her cheek, and she would kiss me on my cheek and kissing my cheek, and this continued on until my mother lost all of her mobility and she couldn't move. And so when I would come to her house, when I walk in her house, she would just do like this. And she would
Oh,
put her forehead down so I can kiss it, and I would kiss it. And so after she gave me this message a day prior to passing, she looked at me and she grabbed my hands and she put her head down. And I
God.
kissed on her forehead and I leaned in and she came up, put her arms around my neck because we started doing this too, so I could lift her
Hmm.
and put her arms around her neck and she kissed in my cheek 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And she leaned back in her chair. And so my mother was having moments of going in and out of reality. So she got all of her strength to say all this to me. And then when she laid back in her chair, she did like this and it just went away. She went back into that just state of just not being connected to reality and space. And then she started playing in the air by herself. But she took the opportunity to give me my flowers, to give me my red rose before she actually left this earth. And so the one thing that I had to do for her funeral was I had to give out 400 red roses to every person that attended her funeral. And we did just that. And I am trying to think of a way this year to get 400 roses and give them out to people every year on August the 19th. I think I want to do that in remembrance of my mother because the one thing that she could give She was from West Baltimore, struggling, a poor, impoverished African American mother, raising three kids by herself. She struggled to pay her bills. She faced evictions. She was a drug addict, a crack whore. You could call her everything in a book. But the one thing my mother gave everybody that ever came in contact with her was love and acceptance. No matter what you went, no matter where you were, no matter what you heard about Donna Jean Cole, the next word she followed from her name was, she loved me.
I
My
love
mother
that.
gave love to a lot of my friends that got put out of their parents' homes when they came out. She was the mom that was, baby, come stay with us, live here. My mother gave a lot of love to people that were struggling addiction. She made them feel wanted and needed. She made them feel important. She made them feel loved and appreciated. My mother gave a lot of love to people that she could find in back alleys who people would look at and they would just disregard them. They would say they don't deserve love. She was the epitome of being selfless when it came to loving people. She just spread love around. I don't know how she did that because her love that she received was limited to the capacities of family.
Right. Well, I have to say, you said a mouthful. But first of all, thank you for sharing the story. As you see, it affect me in a very hard way. One thing I have to say is how beautiful it is to have a celebration of your life while you're still alive,
Hmm.
and to see all the people whose lives you've touched in a way, and they show up and they show out. Um, how hard it is for her to be present in that moment, and like you said, she got a little overwhelmed. She needed to take a break. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to know that your life is coming to an end, and these are all the people of your life, your friends, your family, who you've supported and you've touched in some way. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we did that? Like if we all did that, you know?
Yeah.
And not to talk about me, but I want to sidestep on my birthday. That's what I do. I don't have a party. I celebrate my friends for being in my life and for touching my life and giving
That's
so much to
amazing.
me and making me who I am. Everybody, if you go to my Facebook page, I probably have 2,000 messages on there, but I go through and I thank everybody for being a part of my life and being a part of my journey. So what if we lived our life like that? Being thankful for the people who have touched us in some way
Yeah.
would be so much better,
So much better.
and appreciate life. Also, I want to know, what you've experienced is so traumatic. How do we as people go through trauma and are able to proceed on with our lives? You lost your brother through COVID, you lost your mother soon after. How do we take that and we continue to move on with our lives? Because a lot of people, we get stuck in that. You lose people that are important to you in your life, and you're stuck there. It becomes an obstacle for the rest of your life. How can we move beyond that?
And so this segues into my series right now that we're on in my podcast, Facing
Let's
the
talk about
Giants.
it.
I believe that we start by facing those giants. We have to call our shit to the floor. And we have to call it to the floor in a way that we would do it for other people with grace. We are not gracious to ourselves. We are not gracious. We give everybody else grace but me, but Tavon, but
Yes.
Dr. Bazemore. And a part of giving myself grace is facing a giant in my life to say that I have pain. I have hurt. As a Black man, I can say that I am hurting and I need to heal and I need help doing that. But I have to face the giants in my life by calling my hurt and my pain to the arena, to the floor of my life where I'm ready to say, and now what am I going to do about it? Forgiveness. You mentioned that word. Forgiveness is never about the other person. It is about me. It's about
Yes.
relinquishing myself
Yes.
from the bondages that that person, that experience has over my life.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
me snatching the chains of that hurt from around my heart so that my heart can again, beat again in a way that leads to recovery and healing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We have to face the giants in our
Face the
life
giant. Recognize that we have it, face it, and then relinquish it.
and
And
then
that's where
relinquish
the
it.
grace comes in.
And that's where grace comes in. And
Yeah.
guess what? You don't have to have it all figured out. And so, I was raised in the church. I'm not
Say
heavy
that again.
religious.
Say that again.
You
You don't
don't
have to have
have
it
to
all
have it
figured
all
out.
figured out.
You don't.
I was raised in the church. I'm not heavy religious, but when I think about facing a giant, we think about David and Goliath, right? David went to battle with a slingshot. He was not equipped for the battle. He was not prepared for the battle. The odds were actually stacked against him. But when you trust and have faith in whatever your higher power or belief is, when you have faith in yourself, when you have faith in your identity, when you have faith in your capabilities, when you have faith in your capacity, and you just show up to the ring and trust that there is success of prevailing on the other side of that ring, even if you have a slingshot, you pull that boy out, you get ready and you pull that thing back and you shoot and you aim for the one thing, the head, the place that you know that you need to make this count. You got to make it count. And you got to shoot your slingshot with confidence, though. Like, you can't be all flimsy acting out. Like, you have to believe that you're about to take this giant out. And when you have that courage, that bravery, when you have that belief and motivation in yourself, no matter what the giant is in your life, if it's overcoming addiction, if it's healing, if it's recovery, if it's getting out of a toxic relationship, toxic friendships, if it's a health and fitness goal, if it's a mental health goal, if it is starting a business, if it's going back to school, if it, whatever it is, if it's healing a relationship with your family and going into therapy, once you believe in the outcome, when you believe in the outcome, then you are truly ready to step in the arena and face the giants of life. And guess what? Once you face one, it doesn't mean that another one is not coming.
That's right.
David had Goliath, but the battlefield was filled with giants.
Right.
His focus was just Goliath.
Right.
So you need people with you.
Life and challenge. We're always going to have obstacles. And I think you said it. It's, show up. You have to believe that you can overcome it. You have to have, that's your faith.
Have to.
But show up. Recognize that there's a problem. Show up and believe that you can conquer it. Right?
And do the work.
And do
the actual work. Don't come and say, I'm going to start a Fortune 500 company, but then you don't put nothing in place to do it. You just sitting at home researching how to start a Fortune 500 company. What sense does that make? You have to really put your work into action. You have to put your plan into action. We sit and we plan a lot, but we have to start moving those pieces to start putting things in place.
And if you don't know how, ask questions.
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Get connected to a coach. Get connected to a mentor. I don't believe in coaches. Yep. I believe that coaches believe they're as strong as their most valuable player, but mentors want their most valuable player to be better than them so that they can go out and change the world. So get connected to a mentor, get connected to a peer that can be an accountability partner that can hold you accountable to the things that you say you want to do in life. Make some plans, make some moves. Start small, but do something every day. Do something every day to reach whatever it is your goal is going to be. And when obstacles come up, because it's going to happen, there's going to be things that's going to come and make you believe that you can't do this, that you're not great enough, you're not strong enough, that this was not meant or built for you, that you were not meant or built for this. Still, like you said, show up regardless. Show up.
Yeah. Show up. I want to talk quickly again about your podcast, and then I want to ask you about your professional. So the podcast, tell us again, what's the purpose of it? You have some interesting, episodes like It's Okay to Say I'm Not Okay, Limitless, Setting Limits, Know Your Worth. Beautiful.
Thank you.
This has become my favorite podcast now.
Thank you.
Because it's so valuable, and these are episodes that we can play over and over and over again. And when you feel like you have the obstacles and you need somebody to hear, you don't have a mentor. Play these episodes. I'm telling everybody right now, play the episodes of this podcast.
So yes, I'm going to talk. My shift is a podcast that started out of a conversation that I was having. So I was doing a tour across Baltimore. It was called Speak to My Heart. And what Speak to My Heart was, we were speaking to the heart matters of things, the broken places, those hurtful places. I'm a clinician at heart. I have the therapeutic skills to help people heal and recover. But I like to do that in group sessions, and I like to do it on a real front, face to face, like digging in, not that therapy crap that, no, but we're going to get serious about this. And we're going to call our stuff to the floor. I love Brene Brown. She is one of my inspirations, a social worker who has Red Table, who has the TED Talks, and she has, YouTube stuff going on. And I like the real in your face things that mean something. Like, I don't need all these metaphors and I don't even understand what the hell we're talking about. I need some real, like, okay, how do I get over a breakup? How do I deal with losing a sibling? How do I deal with being an adult who is losing a parent? How do I talk about being a black man
Yeah.
raised in communities normally by our mothers, and then our mothers pass away? What that
Mm-hmm.
feels like for a black man who was raised by a single mother, who don't have connections and ties to their father's family. Thank God I do, but we have to think about how that impacts our brothers.
Right.
um so yes, I'm going to talk. My shift is that. Yes, I'm going to talk. My shift is a open conversation where I feel like I'm the expert on certain topics, and we talk about how we can in real life make shifts in our life from negative places to more positive, resilient places that we can overcome and we can heal and we can grow. That's all that it's about. But we're raw. We're raw, and we go get down to some of the real things that people don't like to talk about in here. But it's a safe space if you really come to do the work. That's what the podcast is about. Really having open conversations about healing. And anyone that lost a sibling should listen to Brotherly Love. There were two parts to it. Me and my three friends
Mm-hmm.
all lost brothers who were younger than us. Well, one brother was older than her, but we all lost brothers who were younger than us in significant, detrimental ways. Some through sickness and some through some very tragic experiences. And we talk about how being that close to those siblings and how we had to overcome that. So anybody that needs to talk about losing a sibling, listen to Brotherly Love. Um, but that's what it is. I was, traveling. I said, okay, I got to get this on a better platform, so where people can really hear me talking like I talk to my staff. I talk to my staff like this. This is how my staff get motivational. When we have all staff meetings, we talk just like this. I get down to the nitty gritty of life and overcoming obstacles. And that's what, yes, I'm going to talk my shift is about.
Beautiful and beautifully done. I'm going to tell you this though. I don't know if it's not on YouTube, but we need to see you. We need to see you on YouTube. We need to see you on a video platform doing this podcast. What I want to do too, and we can talk about this off camera, but I want to have a panel of people like yourself, clinical social workers, my psychotherapist that comes on the show, and we'll have a panel. We'll talk about it. I don't know. You specifically deal with Black men, but I'm sure you have a diverse clientele as well. But I would like to do that for Black men,
Yeah.
and just people in general. But I feel like we're at a place where we need help, and we need people who look like us helping us.
Yeah, and we need to people learn by different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And right now the thing that is um overtaking our world is social media, videos, and podcasts and things that people can see. They want to see things on networks and YouTube and Netflix and
Absolutely.
all this stuff. So being able to see it is also helpful because people like to learn different ways. So we
Absolutely.
need more visual
More
projects. People
visual.
are like, oh, okay, so the person behind that podcast looks like me.
Right. So let's do it. I think we should do it.
I agree.
And we can talk about that later. I don't want to hold you up anymore. I could talk to you all day. First of all, I want to invite you back to the show. Second of all, I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you for your time. I know you're a busy man, busy schedule. Anything else you want us to know right now? Because I'm inviting you back to the show to talk, so we can talk about more later. But anything upcoming that you need us to know? Or first of all, how do we get in touch with you so we can, reach out and
Please follow me for content on Twitter. I am the Dr. Bazemore. On Instagram, I am Dr. Bazemore, the social worker. Please follow me. I will follow you guys back. But you can find me on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, really. At Yes, I'm going to talk my shift. That is SHIFT, not SHIT, but y'all know we're going to talk our shit on there too. Um, and you can follow the podcast and look for new upcoming things. Our next podcast series in um, May is going to be Discovering Self. In my first podcast, I'm going to probably record while I'm in Thailand next week. So this is
Beautiful.
going to be a great experience of recording in Thailand and discovering myself, because I have decided that in this life, after losing my mom and my brother, that I'm going to take every advantage of this life to explore and be the person I want to be. And I have been doing that. I resigned from my job. I'm in the process of trying to figure that out, but I have been living and enjoying life. My mom, I promised her I was going to live, and I've
That's
been
right.
living. So next week we'll be in Thailand.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. And definitely, I'm going to be listening on that journey. And hopefully, like I said, you show us some visuals too, because we need to see that as well. So please, everybody, make sure you check out this podcast. It's called Yes, I'm going to Talk My Shift. I've already rated it. I've already reviewed it. I'm listening to it. It's on my follow list, and make sure it's on yours as well. Follow him on all the social media, get to know him, and help shift your life. His name is Dr.Taavon Bazemore. He's a licensed clinical social worker and consultant and host of the podcast. Yes, I'm going to shift my life. I want to thank him for coming on the show, and hopefully I can be a guest on his show. Look
Of
out for the
course,
panel that we might have. Well, I'm going to say we're having it because I'm talking this into existence. We're going
distance.
to have a panel to help, shift your life. Look out for that. Thank you guys all for joining me for OneMicNite podcast. Follow the show at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite. Make sure you follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis, on all social media. And a lot of you have been asking about the t-shirts, and yes, they're coming. I have one on right now. It says I am art, and the OneMicNite logo there. So please check out the merchandise and check out my store, Azules Ien, on Shopify. Check out the Elements of Lifestyle. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time on OneMicNite. We're out.